What does it mean to have eternal life? Perhaps you've heard religious people mention the idea of having eternal life and been confused about it. After all, we don't see any people living forever, do we? In fact, we see physical death often come early among both those that are religious and those that are not. So what does it really mean to have eternal life? In the King James Bible, the phrase eternal life is actually found 26 times. It's interesting to note that the first time we hear this phrase mentioned is actually when a rich young man asks Jesus himself the question, "What good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life?" Friends, one principle to keep in mind when studying the Scriptures is that oftentimes the first time something is mentioned is critical to understanding the topic. This, no doubt, is one of those times that we can use this rule. Let's look at this passage in the book of Matthew and see how Jesus answers this weighty question. Matthew chapter 19, 16, and 17. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good Master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is, God. But if thou wilt enter life, keep the commandments. Folks, let's keep in mind that the title of this message is, What does it mean to have eternal life? Not, What must I do to have eternal life? Does this passage help us to understand what eternal life is? Absolutely it does. Notice that Jesus tells this man, if you want to enter into life. What life? Eternal life. So it is obvious that Jesus is not telling him what he needs to do to stay physically alive, but rather what he needs to do to enter into life. Friends, eternal life is the idea that after we physically die, we will live on forever in our soul and spirit with God. In fact, our physical body will one day be resurrected back to life and then changed into an amazing and glorious new body. That's all part of eternal life. Folks, I would like to tell you a true story. Years ago, I was on the streets of Niagara Falls sharing the gospel with everyone that would take time to listen. There was one young man that, after barely getting into the conversation, he cut me off and said, Hey man, I'm good. When I die, I'll just go back to dust and stay there. This man believed in two options. Be religious and get eternal life, or be an unbeliever and stay in the grave. Immediately, a passage in the book of John came to mind. John chapter 5, 28 and 29. Do not marvel at this, for an hour is coming when all who are in the tombs will hear his voice and come out, those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of judgment. Friends, I hope at this time to plead with your heart to heart. The reality is that everyone has eternal life and will be resurrected from the dead, whether they like it or not. You will be resurrected from the dead. This fellow I talked to in the streets of Niagara Falls went away not believing in the message. And if he continues with that mindset until the day he physically dies, he will be sorely disappointed when one day he is awakened out of the grave. The subject of eternal life is a very serious one, and one that demands our full attention. How short is this physical life on earth compared to the eternal afterlife? All those that die as rejectors of Christ will one day stand before a holy God and be judged. And please, don't think that your good will outweigh your bad. It does not work that way. Any bad, regardless of how small it is enough to damn us to hell forever. Why? because only those that have been forgiven of their sins in this life are worthy to enter into life with God.